let's get into the topic for today. So the topic for today, as many of you have already seen, is whom should I marry? Honest question, how many of you have ever asked yourself that question? Let me know. How many of you have ever asked yourself the question? Now, before you answer, I saw the question, or I heard the question that John asked a couple of minutes ago, and I guarantee you guys were not honest about it, okay? There were about 4 or 5 people that were honest, okay? But now, John is not the one asking the questions. I'm the one asking the question, so I'm not going to let you off the hook as easily as John did, okay? I need honesty when I'm asking questions. So when John asked the question about how many of you are in a relationship or were in a relationship, I think I barely saw 5 hands go up. Now, I also understand the question that Emmanuel had. He said, was it a one-way relationship or a two-way relationship? And, I can understand that can be a genuine question for many of you. And so, but the reality is, as we move further along in this discussion and as we go through these points, I really, really would love for every one of you to be honest with yourselves and honest with one another. See, one of the things about NCYA is this, when John was giving you the introduction as well. See, we're a community of people. We want to genuinely live out our faith. We want to genuinely and authentically live out our faith. We're not trying to act like somebody that we are not. We're not trying to, we don't want this to be a group of young adults or a community of young adults that tries to portray an image that they are not truly living out, okay? We understand that people make mistakes. We understand that we sin in our lives and different things happen. But the important thing is we are a community of people that are pursuing the right kind of living. We are pursuing it. We're not perfect by any means, but we are pursuing that. And while we're pursuing that, it is important that we be honest people. One of the biggest issues with the church world or the religious world today is that many people, too many people, live a fake life. They try to portray something that they're really not. And so we don't want that to be the case with this particular young adult community. All right? So there's not going to be judgment, but I want this to be an environment where there's freedom for you to express who you really are or what is happening in your life, so that we can all progress and take steps forward and become the people that God has called every one of us to be. All right? Now, the question about who should I get married. Please speak on this. All right. Yeah. Let the question, somebody said relationship with unbeliever. Please speak on this. Just keep letting the questions flow. I'll get to them at the end of the talk. Okay. All right. So the question about who should I get married to or whom should I get married to is an age-old question. It's been a question that our parents have asked. It's a question that our grandparents have asked, and so on and so forth. And it's an age-old question, but the age-old question has, over the period of time, has often got very complicated in answering that question, because even though the question was the same before, it was not as complicated as it is today. It's kind of like this, when you were going to school, the parents were asking, like, which school should I send my child to? Which school should my son go? Should my daughter go to? And finally, they would make a decision, and they would send you to that particular school, LKG, UKG, middle school, kindergarten, whatever it is. And so the parent would actually make the decision. So also, especially when we talk about the Indian culture, and I'll talk about this in terms of the Indian culture, because the majority of us on this call are Indians. And so, if not all of us are pretty much Indians. And so, in our culture, this answer of who should I get married to or who should I marry was also something that was decided by someone else. You really had nothing, you didn't have a real involvement in this whole process. However, today we don't live in the same world. We don't live in the same culture. We don't live in the same environment. And therefore, because of everything that we hear from culture, because of everything we hear from friends and then relatives, and what you hear from the office, and what you see in the movies, what you see on Netflix, what you see on every other OTT network, and the serials that you watch, the movies that you watch. Now, there's so many things that are being spoken into our lives. Now, the answer is getting more complicated by the day. It's not a simple answer like it used to be in times before. And so it now becomes very important as to how we make this decision. Now, overall, I understand I'm going to be oversimplifying this, but overall, without digging too much into it, if you look at the culture as a whole, if you look at what you see in the movies, what you see in music videos, what you hear in the lyrics of the songs, what you see in the environments that you find yourself in, most of the time, the answer that the culture often gives us is that you marry the person that makes you feel loved, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel beautiful. In other words, culture often tells us to go ahead and marry the person based on feelings. All right, based on feelings. That's the overall. I know I'm generalizing the answer at this point, but again, we have limited time, so I'm doing that. But overall, it revolves around and it is based on feelings. And that's why even we use terms like I fell in love. All right. We don't say I've decided to love somebody. We say I fell in love with somebody. And so what happens is falling. See, nobody decides to fall. Any of you, how many of you ever fell in, just in your life? You fell down. How many of you ever fell down? I'm not talking about falling in love. You just fell down in your life at some point. Okay. We have people on this call who never fell down in their life. Okay. All right, more honesty coming in right now. Okay, very happy for the honesty. Okay, so you fell down. How many of you planned to fall down and fell down? So you were playing cricket, you were chasing that ball, and you decided, oh, perfect time to fall. I'm about to fall, and you decided to fall. How many of you did that? You fell on purpose. Anybody? Okay, you don't fall on purpose. You just fall by accident. And when we say we fall in love, we almost have this tendency to say like it wasn't a decision, I just fell. Like my emotions took over, my feelings took over. I just saw the girl, I just saw the guy. The first thing that he told me, the first thing that he did for me, the first thing that she did for me, I just fell. And so when we say I fell in love, and what happens is we are taking the power of decision out of our lives. We're giving that decision, the privilege of decision, to some external force. And so what happens is when you believe that that narrative, what happens is people fall in love, and people who fall in love can also fall out of love. Does that make sense? Yeah, if you fell in love by accident, you can fall out of love by accident. Right? And that's why today more than ever before, what happens is people who say, I love you, I fell in love with you, tomorrow they will say, I have fallen out of love with you. And therefore, even when it comes to not just getting married to a person, not just being in a relationship, not just having a girlfriend or a boyfriend and things like that, but even after getting married, now more than ever before, people say, I can no longer live with you. I no longer love you. Meaning what? Oh, it was something based on a feeling. Back when we were working together, we were working in the same office and all our friends were saying nice things about us. Oh, that made me feel really good and I wanted to get married to you. And that's the reason I got married to you. But now, once we have gotten married, and now after we have a child, or even if the children have not come about, now that we're living together in this apartment, and now that we cannot spend as much time with our friends like we used to before, and now each one of us are so busy in our own worlds, and now we have to take care of the kid, we don't receive all the positive affirmation and positive messages we used to get from our friends. So those feelings of excitement of being in this relationship are no longer there. And because they are no longer there, I have fallen out of love. And because I have fallen out of love, now when the reality of life, when the reality of living in a committed relationship, with the reality of doing things that you don't want to do, doing things for the sake of the spouse, sacrificing for the sake of the spouse, all of those things start coming in, what do people say? I'm sorry, I'll see you later. I've got to go. And what happens? We say goodbye and then we move on. And now we're seeing this more than ever before. So again, this just with that framework, I just want you to know, the understanding that feelings will determine or feelings will let you know who you're supposed to marry is a false presumption or a false narrative. Please do not fall for it. Because if you fall for it or if you tend to believe in that narrative, you will be misguided. You will end up in the wrong destination. Here again, think about who is manufacturing this narrative. It's the entertainment industry that's manufacturing this narrative more than anyone else. It's the music, it's the movies. Now, if you had to look at one, area of society and say, where are the most messed up, jacked up relationships in the world? What segment of people? It's not the people in the villages. It's not the poor people. The most jacked up, messed up relationships in the world right now are in and from the entertainment industry. Whether it's Bollywood, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's Malayalam, Hindi, Telugu, English, Urdu, it doesn't matter. It all revolves around the entertainment world. Anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter if it's Africa, Australia, Europe, Russia, you go anywhere, South America, the most jacked up relationships will be found in the entertainment world. Why? Because they are the ones that are pumping this narrative, and yet you can see it in their own lives that narrative does not work. All right? Now, with that foundation, here's what I want you to know. The goal when it comes to relationships, if you're taking notes, write this down. The goal is to be joyfully married for the rest of your life. I'm not talking about relationships, and I'm not talking about being married for a few months. I'm not talking about being married for a few years or a season of your life. The goal is to be joyfully married for the rest of your life. It's for the rest of your life. It's not just for a short season. It has to be for the rest of your life. Now, if you're asking, if we say that is the goal is to be married for the rest of my life, then the question comes, who should I marry? Who should I marry? Now, when I talk about who should I marry, at the same time, I'm also talking to you about, if you want to marry, that means somebody else also should be in a position where they want to marry you, right? It cannot be a one-way relationship. It has to be a two-way thing. I mean, one-way relationships work fine when you're in high school or in college, and like you never talk to the other person, but in your imagination, they're your girlfriend and they're your boyfriend. Imagination, and that's where it stops. But if you want to get married, you can't get married in your imagination and just live your own life thinking, oh, I'm married to that person. That's not how it works. So when it comes to marriage, you need to make sure that it's a two-way relationship. And if it's a two-way relationship, it's not just about, okay, who should I marry, but it's also important to understand this is also about me becoming a person that person wants to marry as well. All right? So write this down. Who should I marry / who should I become? Who should I marry / who should I become? All right? Who should I marry / who should I become? Now, with that being said, go with me to 1 Timothy chapter 4, please. 1 Timothy chapter 4. Now, I understand and realize that we can talk about this subject for weeks on. And in fact, a couple of weeks from now, the next thing that we're going to do, I'm going to take an entire, maybe a month or two, just to deal with the subject of relationships. Okay, we're going to dive really deep into it, and we're going to take apart different parts of relationships and get into it. But for today, because we're still in Back to the Future, and we're dealing with different areas of life, and for this week, we're dealing with relationships. And so I'm going to do like a quick overview of certain things today. So 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12. It says this. It says, don't let anyone think less of you because you are young. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It says, be an example to all believers in what you say, the way you live, in your love, your faith, and your purity. Right? 5 things that Paul is telling Timothy. Now, in the Amplified Version, he says, let no one despise or think less of you because of your youth, but be an example, a pattern, all right? Keep that word in mind. A pattern for believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. Now, today, for the rest of the time that we have, I want to talk to you about those 5 things or those 5 areas. All right? Those 5 areas. So, number 1, the first thing that he talks about is what you say. What you say. So, if you're taking notes, write this down. What comes out of their mouth, or what comes out of your mouth? What comes out of their mouth, or what comes out of your mouth? James chapter 1 verse 19 says this: understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. When you are thinking about this ideal person that you want to get married to, one of the things that you've got to be thinking about, one of the questions or one of the areas that you should be considering is their speech. What is coming out of their mouth? Now, when we talk about what is coming out of their mouth, we normally think about, okay, are they using bad language? Are they using foul words? And many people stop there. I'm going to push it a little further. This is not just about using certain words and not using certain words. This goes beyond that. I'm also going to ask you or challenge you to even think about what kind of words come out of their mouth. Like, are they negative words? Or are they positive words? Are they fear-filled words, or are they faith-filled words? Because that will reveal to you the condition of their heart. That will, see, the words that come out of their mouth reveal to you what is deep down on the inside of them. See, when you talk to that other individual, when you see their profile or when you see a picture and all of that, all you see is what's on the external. But when you hear the words that come out of their mouths, that's when you know what they truly believe in their hearts. That's when they know how they think about the future. That's when you know what their real convictions are. That's when you know how they look at their life, how they project their lives, what they're expecting for the future, what they are thinking about for the next 50, 60 years of their life. What are they dreaming of? What are they believing for? All of that can be known when you pay attention to what comes out of their mouth. Now, even especially, for example, this can be a person at church, this can be a person at your work and different places. When they are in a tight situation, when they're in a pressurized situation, what comes out of their mouth? What comes out of their mouth? When they are in a pressurized situation, what comes out of their mouth? Because when you can know and discern what comes out of their mouth, you know the condition of their heart. And you know what's going on deep down on the inside of them. Luke chapter 6 verse 45 says this. Luke 6:45. A good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what is in your heart. What you say flows from what is in your heart. Now, let me also say this while we're on the first point. When we read 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12, in the Amplified Version, it talks about, he says, be an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Now, he says, when he says example, he uses the word pattern. Meaning, this is not talking about you and I being absolutely perfect. This is not talking about you and I never, ever, 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 ever in a million years letting one negative word come out of our mouth. This is not talking about when you're in a pressurized situation and you let a bad word come out of your mouth. This is not talking about one bad word, okay, never in a million years will I marry this person. No, that's not what I'm saying. Every one of us makes mistakes, but this is a pattern. Meaning, even if you heard them say something negative, is that something that they just said that once? Or is that something that just happens once in a year or once in, a very rare thing that happens? Or is this a pattern of their lives? Do they constantly think negatively? Do they, even if they say something negative, does their conviction kick in? Do they say, oops, I should not have said that. Oh, I should not have spoken in a negative way. Oh, I should not have used that kind of language. I should not have let my anger spill out on those people that way, on my spouse or on the children or in my house or at the workplace. You've got to check for patterns in their life. Number 2, what is their reputation? What is their reputation? What is their reputation? Because the second thing that Paul tells Timothy about is conduct. All right? Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 11. Proverbs 20 verse 11 says, even children are known by the way they act, whether their conduct is pure or whether it is right. So in other words, he's saying even children are known by their conduct, which means if children are known by their conduct, adults absolutely should be known by conduct. Not what is written on a piece of paper, not what is shown on a online profile, not what is shown on Facebook or on Instagram, right? It has to go deeper than that, and it has to deal with conduct, which means you should be able to gather some information. Now, this is what typically happens, even when, traditionally speaking, even in India, when you get a resume or profile of a person who is who would like to get married, what typically happens is the family tries to do some digging about that person. Why? What are they trying to find out? They're trying to find out the conduct or reputation of that particular individual. That's why they call the pastor, they call their neighbors, or they call somebody else, and they find out what kind of girl is she, what kind of guy is this guy, what kind of family do they come from. Why? They're trying to get their reputation and conduct of that particular individual. Now, write this down as you take notes. Past performance is the best indicator of future performance. Past performance is the best indicator for future performance. Some of you looking for jobs. You know one of the reasons why people look for experience? Because past performance is the best indicator for future performance. Past performance is the best indicator for future performance. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because I have talked to enough people who are in relationships with people right now, and yet they look at the patterns of these people, whether it is a girl or whether it is a guy. They look at patterns and they don't like certain patterns in their life, but they make excuses for those patterns. They make excuses for those patterns. Why? Because now they have, quote unquote, fallen in love, and now they desperately just want to get married, and so they make excuses for those patterns. Oh no, Pastor, he only drinks once a month. Oh no, Pastor, he only drinks when there's a party at the office. Oh no, Pastor, he only fights with people when he gets really angry. Right? Oh no, Pastor, she only spends money, and gets into debt and uses the credit card like crazy, whenever she feels a little sad. Right? And because she felt a little sad, or somebody, her boss at her work, got upset with her, and so now she's just trying to get over it. So she comes home and she tries to get into debt. She buys a lot of clothes online, and so she makes, it makes her feel happy. And that's the only reason she does it, Pastor. Otherwise, she's really nice. That's the only reason. Right? And the girls make all kinds of excuses for the guys. Oh, he only beats up only when this happens. That's the only time he does that. Right? What are you doing? You are making an excuse for what is a pattern. Again, I am not talking about an individual doing one thing, one point. I'm talking about a pattern. I'm talking about a reputation. Are you understanding that? All right? You don't see. For example, in cricket or any other game, there are a lot of people who have let's say, scored a half a century or a century, or they made the winning play of the game. But they're not well recognized. Just because you had one century, nobody calls you a great batsman. You're called a great batsman when you have multiple centuries. Why? Because that's your reputation. You understand that? Now, a really good batsman, even if he's duck out in a game, nobody says he's a terrible batsman. Why? Because his reputation says he just had one bad game. But he's a really terrific batsman. Are you understanding that? So again, we're talking about patterns, we're talking about reputation. So don't make excuses for the other person's patterns. If you are making excuses for them, you might be dealing with the wrong individual. I'll say that again. If you are making excuses for them, you might be dealing with the wrong individual. I'll also say this. Now, because we're in India and in the context, I know that not all of you are in relationships, and I know that not all of you are trying to look for people, in the office space or wherever you are. Some of you are depending on your parents or on your pastors and other people to find someone else for you. But please listen to this. Even when somebody is found through your parents or somebody else in the relatives, if the relatives are trying to make excuses for the patterns and behaviors of that other individual, pay attention to that. Don't just jump in. Pay attention to that. All right? Number 3. What do they love? What do they love? What do they love? And you've got to know this, because when you get to know that truly, you will know what they love more than God and the things of God. What is it that they love more than God and the things of God? Again, I understand that I'm talking to you from a spiritual context and a spiritual or a Christian perspective. But again, this is the best time-tested, proven wisdom of God that has helped people to live lives where they can have joyful marriages or joy-filled marriages. All right, what did they love? Matthew chapter 22. Verses 37 and 38 says this. It says, Jesus replied, saying, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Now, when it comes to the things of love, I know it is easy for people to say, oh, I love God, especially if you're from a Christian family. Oh, I love Jesus. Jesus is my best friend. Jesus is my Lord. All of these dialogues and all of these, quotes or cliche sayings will be by-hearted by every Christian. But it goes beyond that. Well, how do you know what a person loves? Where do they invest their time, talents, and treasure? 3 things, 3 T's. Time, talent, treasure. Time, talent, treasure. Write that down. Time, talent, treasure. Where do they invest their time? Where do they invest their talent? And where do they invest their treasure? When you know where they're investing their time, talent, and treasure, you begin to understand what they really and truly love. All right? What they really and truly love. Matthew chapter 6 verse 21 says this, wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also. Wherever your treasure is. So it's very easy for an individual to say, oh, I love this person, or I love you, or I love God. But if the treasure and if the time and if the talents don't match up with the words, that means the words that they spoke are not true. Are you understanding that? If a person says, I love you, but then they have a real hard time to pay for the food, they have a real hard time to pay for the Uber, they have a real hard time to, do all of these kinds of things, the love isn't there. If they say, I love God, I love God, I love God, but they never give anything to the church, they never help the poor, they never do anything, they never give up their time to the church, they never give up their talents to the church, then you know that the love is not sincere. And the love isn't there. All right? All right, let's go to number 4. Number 4 says, what do they believe? What do they believe? What do they believe? Now, this is important because everything that you do in life, the way you live, the decisions that you make, all of them will stem out of what you believe in your heart. Everything. Every single thing is going to come out of your belief system. Now, a lot of people get married to people just because they say they believe the same things. Oh, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian. I'm a Hindu, I'm a Hindu. I'm a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. Right? And we think, okay, just because we said that both of us are Christians, we're good to go. No, I would take it a step further. In the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 14, this is what it says. It says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness, and what communion has light with darkness? In the New Living Translation, it says, don't team up with those who are unbelievers. Right? Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? How can light live with darkness? So when you understand that, what you need to really understand is this. See, it's kind of like, let me use a simple example. Like, all right, this is an iPhone. All right, which means it runs on the iOS platform or the app, whatever is decided by Apple. All right. On the other side is let's say a Samsung phone, and it runs on the Android. Right. The software is completely different. Are both of them cell phones? Absolutely, both of them are cell phones, but both of them don't work the same way. And so to try to merge an iPhone with a Samsung, it's going to be a chaotic situation there. So just because they're cell phones doesn't mean they're going to be good for one another. Just because two are computers doesn't mean they're going to be fit for one another. So you've got to dig in a little bit deeper and really figure out what is it that they truly believe. What is at the root of their belief system? What is their belief system? If you don't know and if you don't understand their belief system, you can be in for a rude awakening. You can be in for a rude awakening at a later time in your life. All right. I read the New Living, right? All right. Yeah. And again, when you talk about belief system, you also have to think about genuinely, what are you looking for in your future spouse? See, some people are desperately looking for people in the wrong places. You're on every dating app possible, every dating app that has been recommended to you by your friends, you're on there, and you have a profile on there. You swipe left, you swipe right, you swipe up, you swipe down, you go in, you go out, you do every kind of thing possible. And the whole time you keep praying and saying, God, give me the right person, give me the right person, give me the right person. Now, let me say this. For example, how many of you are familiar with the store Decathlon? Everybody familiar? All right. Most of you are familiar with the store Decathlon. All right. Now, when you think of Decathlon, do you think of wedding dresses? Anybody shop like you? Okay. Oh, I have a friend's wedding coming up. Let me go to Decathlon to buy some clothes. Anybody go shopping in Decathlon for your wedding, for Christmas shopping? Right? You're getting ready for church, and so you want to go to Decathlon to buy some clothes. No, you don't. Right? Now, why am I saying that? See, here's my point. If I want to buy some athletic clothes, like I'm going to work out, okay, I got my membership at a gym, I need to be working out, so I need some t-shirts, I need some shorts, I need some socks, I need a new pair of tennis shoes or whatever it is, and I need some athletic wear, right? So me going to Decathlon, the likelihood of me finding what I want drastically increases versus me going to, let's say, some other mall or a store like H&M. Right? Me going to H&M and then trying to find athletic wear in H&M. Now, can you find it? Sure. But how much more would you have to dig around in H&M to find athletic gear? Versus the likelihood of you, even by accident, you might find athletic gear if you just get to Decathlon. Am I making sense to you? See, if you are in the right place, you can even find what you are looking for by accident. But if you're in the wrong place, and if you're constantly looking, and you can be working 10 times as hard to find what you're looking for, but you're having to work 10 times as hard because you are in the wrong place. You're looking in the wrong place. And a lot of times, even Christians, again, you say you love God, you say you want a great spouse for your life and future, blah, 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 and all of these things. And then you still go back to the college and look for the girl in the college. You still look for the girl, at your workplace. You still look for the girl at the club. You still look for the guy at some other social gathering. And you think that that's where it's going to be. No, now, am I saying it's impossible to find a great girl or a great guy at your workplace or at, a social gathering or at a wedding or any of those things? Absolutely not. Right? But at the same time, the likelihood drastically decreases. But at the same time, if you're looking at the right places, then the likelihood drastically increases as well. And you have enough help trying to help you discern or help you decide in what you're supposed to get. Why? Because the people who work at Decathlon, they are good at helping you get athletic wear. You got that? They're good at helping you find athletic wear. They're going to help you get it. Even if you're clueless, they will help you get it. But if you go to another store, like H&M or South India Shopping Mall, and then now if you go to Chennai Shopping Mall, and you're going in there, and now you say, oh, I'm looking for athletic wear. I want some sports shoes, I want some shorts, and I want some, whatever it is. And they have no clue. Why? Because they're not good at athletic wear. They might be good at showing you saris and something else, but they've got no clue at athletic gear. And a lot of times what happens is we go to the office spaces, we go to the club, we go to our friends, we go to the movies, we go to Netflix, and we say, please give me wisdom, please give me wisdom, please help me to find the girl, help me to find the girl, help me to find the girl. And what's going to happen? They're going to tell you how to find the girl, they're going to tell you how to find the boy, but it's not going to be good advice for you. All right? I hope that makes sense to you. Now, number 5. All right, we're running out of time. Number 5. Do they live and value purity? Do they live and value purity? Live and value purity. Now, let me say this. I know this is it shouldn't be, but it is. Sometimes it can be a sensitive subject to certain people. When I'm talking about purity, I'm not just talking about sexual purity, but I'm also talking, in fact, the word purity that is used in the scripture, it actually means moral cleanness. Moral cleanness. It's not just talking about sexual purity, even though it absolutely includes sexual purity. All right? Now, do they value and do they live out purity in their life? Now, let me say this. Just because if you have done things in your past and if you've done things in your life, it does not mean that now you are set aside because you've done something that you were not supposed to do and nobody else is going to you're not going to be used of God, or that you're not good for anybody else to get married to, or any of those things, right? I'm not saying any of those things. However, as we move forward, we've got to become people who value and live out purity in our lives. We must value and live out purity in our lives. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 19 says this. It says, do you not know that your body is the temple, the very sanctuary of the Holy Spirit, who lives with you, whom you have received as a gift from God? You are not your own. You are not your own. Now, for anybody that is not who doesn't believe in Christ, or who is not a Christian, this might seem like a crazy statement to make, like you are not your own. What do you mean? This is my body, I am my own, like nobody bought this for me. I understand that. But however, in the Christian faith, all right, we believe that our bodies are not our own. We actually believe that these bodies have been bought for us by God, that God paid a price for our bodies, and that we actually believe that the Spirit of God lives on the inside of us. And when you believe that, now you've got to become cognizant of the fact that every decision I make, the way I think, the way I live, the way I make decisions in my life, the way I behave with other people matters. The way I live with other people matters. And once you understand that, and once you begin to value purity in your life, now again, I am not talking about perfection, my friends. I'm saying this is the pursuit right? The pursuit, meaning again, it's think of it like a bodybuilder. Think of it like a person that is going to the gym. It's not that, even if you think about somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's not that he is perfection. He is not perfection. There was never a day in his life where he went to the gym and he thought, perfection, I've achieved it. He never had that day. Why? Because he was always in the pursuit. Right? Always in the pursuit. So we're never going to get to the place where to say, purity, I've achieved it. Purity, I've never had a negative thought, I never will have a negative thought. I've never had a lustful thought, I never will have a lustful thought. No, you're not going to get to that place. However, we're constantly in this pursuit of holiness, the pursuit of purity in our lives. Are you understanding that? And so when you are considering somebody, and when you're trying to become a person that that somebody wants to marry, you've got to become a person that values purity. That values purity. That says, okay, I this is a tough thing. This goes against everything that the world is telling me. This goes against everything that my flesh is telling me. This goes against everything that my carnal desires are telling me at this time. But again, I value it. I value it because of what I believe. And what I believe is my body is not my own. What I believe is God really loves me and has a great plan in store for me. And that's the reason God doesn't want me to get into certain things right now. So I'm going to value that purity. I'm going to hold on to that purity. The world might look at me and make fun of me. The world might think I'm an idiot for not doing certain things. The world might think I'm too ignorant for not doing certain things. The world might even think I'm an idiot who is too innocent at certain things. But that's okay. I value purity. And because I value purity, I'm going to have a joyful marriage for the rest of my life. A joyful marriage for the rest of my life. And that's what we're looking for. Now, going back to 1 Timothy chapter 4. I'll close with this. 1 Timothy chapter 4. And then I'll take up your questions after that. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12. Let no one despise you or think less of you. Every single one of you. Whatever you've done in your past, please understand this. Let no one despise or think less of you because of your youth. But be an example, set the pattern for believers in your speech, in your conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Amen? So who should I marry, Pastor? Ideally, you want to marry a person that is pursuing these things in their life. Ideally, you want to become a person that pursues these 5 things in your life so that you can be a blessing to your future spouse, so that some of you, I know you're on this call and you're already married, so that you can become a greater blessing for your spouse, a greater husband for your spouse, a greater wife for your spouse. Some of you right now are not single. The question for you is not who should I get married. You already know, because you're already married. All right. This is not there's. Don't ask yourself that question the second time. You've already answered that question, okay? This is not a second chance or anything at this. You've already answered that question. You already know who you're married to. So now, whatever I spoke to you today, this is about receiving this and saying, okay, I dedicate myself to becoming a better husband. I dedicate myself to becoming a better wife for my husband. Amen? See, again, it's like, a lot of people want to get married, but they don't know exactly who they want to get married to or what kind of person that they're even looking for. A lot of young people right now that I talk to are people who want to get married, but when I say, okay, what kind of person? They struggle in describing that person. It's like going to the mall without knowing what you want to buy. And you just go walk around and walk around and walk around and walk around. And just walk around and walk around and walk around. And what happens? Oh, there's a sale. Let me just get something. Oh, it looks like there's some other shiny thing. Oh, let me try that. And there's something else. Let me try this. Let me try this. And that's how our relationships have become. And we go into the mall with our friends without having any intention of shopping and yet come out with a couple of things. Why? Because our friends were shopping and now we just had to buy something. And many of you got into relationships just because your friend was in a relationship. Nobody has to respond to that. I know I'm telling the truth. You just got into a relationship just because your friends were in relationships. It had nothing else to do with anything. You just didn't want to be left out. And so they were buying clothes. Oh, so I should buy clothes. Oh, they're in relationships, so I should get into one. Not even knowing. And so what happens when you go to the store and you don't have a particular thing in mind? You don't say, like, oh, I'm going to the mall because I need a black raincoat. You don't say that. And so you just walk into the mall. And so if you know that you need a black raincoat, you don't go to every store. You go to the store that sells the black raincoat, and then you get your size, you look for the right fitting, and then you walk away. But if you don't have that, then you walk into every store, and then you listen to every salesperson that's there. And you keep listening, and that's what happens in many of our lives. We listen to the salespersons in our office. We listen to the salespeople on Netflix. We listen to the salespeople in our music. We listen to the salespeople in the movies, and then we decide, oh yeah, I'm being left out. I need a girl. I'm being left out. I need a guy. Oh, Pastor, I don't know how it happened. I just fell into love. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You just listened to enough salespeople, and they convinced you. And you walked out of the mall with a bunch of things you had no business buying. And you continue to live your life in relationships, and you had no business getting into those relationships. Now, on the positive side, let me say this. When you find this kind of person, a person that is pursuing the right speech, a person that is pursuing the right belief systems, a person that is pursuing the right conduct in their life, a person that is pursuing purity in their lives, a person that is pursuing the things of God and love of God in their life. When you find that person, quickly get wisdom from people in your life and marry that person. Get wisdom. Now, listen carefully. I did not say when you find a person, just jump in and marry. No. I didn't say that. Don't skip that middle part. Oh, pastor said, oh, I found that person. My girlfriend is that person. I'm getting married. I didn't say that. I said, once you find that person, get wisdom. Get wisdom, which means you go to somebody that has already been there, already done that, who wants the best for you, who loves you, and he has your future in mind. Go to those people, ask them for advice, get wisdom, and then don't delay. Get married. Get married. Don't listen to the culture that says just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. No. Get married. When you find the person, say, God, I thank you. Get married to that person. And you'll have a joyful marriage for the rest of your life. Amen.